Most business leaders feel two things: overwhelmed and alone. The more success, the worse it gets. And at Aileron, an amazing local organization, if you don't know about them, you have to check them out. But Chuck Huggins, he has spent 20 years there helping business owners fix just those two things. Your team probably depends on you way more than it should. Chuck talks through the important role of leadership and how we can change as leaders in business, teams, whatever it is, the quality of life for so many people. It is a big call. He's also going to talk through the best thing that can happen to you in the next year from now, and I think it'll surprise you. And finally, the founder of Aileron, Clay Mathiel, he has one request for anyone that they help, and you're going to love it. I love the simplicity of it. Check it out. Hello and welcome to the Purpose Matrix. I am very excited for today's guest. This has been a long time coming to get to talk with Chuck Huggins. Chuck, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Phil. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, great to be here. We're getting to know each other a little bit, but what's been a long time coming is, Aileron is such a phenomenal organization close to home here, just north side of Dayton, near Tip City, with so much influence over so many businesses in the region and really throughout the U.S. and maybe even wider. Chuck is the Chief Growth Officer at Aileron, business coach, facilitator, and a leadership coach. We got into leadership topics and as it happens often, I said, hold on, let's hold this conversation so people can listen to it. Let's hit record. But Chuck also is a business owner, entrepreneur himself. He's been at Aileron for a long time, but he owned businesses, he's sold businesses. And then I can't miss that he's married, also has a son and a daughter and a grandchild, two grandchildren, a grandson and a granddaughter. And he says he's a bass fisherman, and I was telling him that I do bass fish, but I'm definitely not a bass fisherman. My 8-year-old son is better than me at it. But Chuck, thanks again for coming on the show. I really appreciate it. Some of the topics we hit on before that I think we're going to talk about are going to be really, really influential, I think, for a lot of people. But why don't you tell us the backstory and really what brought you to Aileron? What kind of piqued your interest there, and we'll take it from there.
Yeah, it's a great question, Phil, because I had my own HVAC company at the time and doing well, supporting my family, had some employees, growing year over year, and got a call from a recruiter with this opportunity, and they caught me on a really good day, and I was like, how old is this resume? And they told me, and I said, who's this with? And they wouldn't tell me. And I said to myself, I go, okay, I have to figure this out, because there's this great opportunity in Dayton to change people's lives, but they won't tell me who's doing it. So I said, I'm going to check it out because I need to know who it is. And I told my wife that. I went home and told my wife, and she goes, are you crazy? What are you doing? So I went to the first interview with the recruiter, and she goes, okay, we're going to move you on to the next stage. And I go, okay, who's it with? She goes, we can't tell you yet. And I go, okay, I have to go again. So I went home, and my wife said, well, how'd it go? Are you done? And I go, not yet. So they told me to show up at this place at a certain time, and it happened to be the Mathiel Family Foundation offices, and just got to spend some time with them and understanding what their vision of Aileron was. And I never thought anything would take me away from my business, because I put my heart and soul into building that. I started it from scratch, but I knew I had the chance to impact so many more lives doing that, and really made the hard choice of deciding to sell my business and come to work at Aileron, because I knew I could impact more people doing that.
How clear was the vision of what Aileron would be close to 20 years ago? So Clay Mathiel, the founder, right? Aileron's nonprofit and just so much impact. But how clear or how important was the vision part of what it would become, especially to you taking a big risk and a big change in your life to jump on board?
Yeah, it's a great question. It wasn't as clear as it is today, but Clay had a vision, and it exists today. It's the founder's vision, right? And one of the things Clay always said was, his mentors, he always tried to pay his mentors, and they said, we're not going to take any of your money. We're only going to ask you for one thing. And he said, what's that? When you become successful, give back to the people that like we gave back to you. And Aileron was his vision of giving back to the entrepreneur, the people with dirt under their fingernails. And that's the way he always talked about it. He knew it was an underserved market, right? There were plenty of people out there working with startups. There were plenty of people like the McKinseys working with the big companies. But, the company that I just came from, that I started, was exactly what Aileron was built for. So it was pretty clear who we were put here to help.
If you answer that question, who Aileron was built for, and not with the answer of the company type, but the individual, like who needs an Aileron in their life? What individual needs that?
Well, I think it's any individual owner, CEO, or president that like has hit the ceiling or a limit or feels overwhelmed, like they're carrying the weight of the world on their shoulders. A lot of our business owners have this huge responsibility for multiple families that work for them. So Clay put us here and built Aileron so that we could help people like that.
You said a couple things that I think have come up before, but if I think of two emotions, and you talked about one of them, overwhelm, but also the two things I think that so many business owners, business startups, maybe side hustle, whatever it might be, whatever phase in business ownership you're in, or leadership, quite frankly, leadership roles in companies for a big corporation, is overwhelm and loneliness. In that, who do I go talk to about this problem? No one else understands what I'm going through and the overwhelm I'm feeling. How common are those two things with owners, executives, presidents that you interact with?
More common than not. And we hear those words a lot, right? And we hear them when businesses are actually doing really well, right? So businesses are making money, they're doing really well, but what we hear from the owner is, hey, I have this sense of overwhelm. I don't have anybody I can talk to. Clay's vision for Aileron was to be the business owner's trusted friend. Yeah. And that's what we try to be every day, because we know there's not many people out there. Some of what you're doing is trying to create that community so people have people to talk to. But there's very few places you can do that. And we want to be one of those places that we can be the business owner's trusted friend.
Yeah, man, so much good stuff. By the way, the ask, I love the ask. I didn't say that, but I wrote it. His only ask is when you become successful or when you figure something out, right? My only ask, give back. Like, what a neat, inspirational response to, hey, how can I help? How can I just, pay it forward, give back. So I love that. And there's so many ways business owners can give back with, I think a lot of business owners think the way to give back is money. And that is great. Serve, tithe, give back money, but also just know that and you've probably felt this in your career, in leadership, business, whatever, that if there's overwhelm and loneliness, there's other people feeling the same thing, and you can help them through that process. So if there's a plea from Chuck and I on this, it's, hey, call somebody that you think is struggling and say, hey, how can I help you out? How can I help your business out? That will mean more than, a lot of other things that you can do. What do you think at the core of, if a lot of business owners say overwhelm, like what's the root cause of that? Like, how do you fix that, right? How are they thinking about things the wrong way that you can come in and turn it around?
Yeah, I think one of the things we do, Phil, is we don't talk about wrong or right, because I believe that the business owners that we get to work with are trying to do the right thing. I think what gets in the way, what creates the overwhelm, is their sense of responsibility to themselves, to their family, to the families they're supporting, right? And we talk about the sense of responsibility being great, but sometimes it gets in your way because it makes you behave in certain ways that maybe a great leader would not behave. Say, for instance, nobody can do this as well as I can, right? So we have a lot of business owners come here that had a great idea that turned into a business, and they still want to be making that widget or selling that widget or, whatever.
Yep.
Designing the new version of that widget because nobody can do it like they can do it.
Right. It reminds me of the E-Myth by Michael Gerber, right? And that's a lot of the story. But I was going to ask, and I think you're going there, is how much of that responsibility is the willingness to give away? Like, how much of it is a control issue in that they're trying to control too much or do things the way they do it when there could be other ways to do it? And really, I mean, if you want to grow a business, which great, hardworking business owners and leaders grow a lot of times, but they might grow out of their leadership capacity maybe.
Yeah, it's a great question because, we talk about everybody brings their personal filter in, and when something happens, it goes through their personal filter, and we develop a thought, right? We talk about the thought, emotion, action concept a lot. We use it a lot, right? And when something happens, it goes through a personal filter, and somebody's personal filter was, hey, the last 2 times I asked somebody to do that, it didn't get done right. So the next time that comes up, guess what? The owner's just going to do it themselves, because now that's in their experience, in their perspective, that I can't ask anybody to do that anymore.
Right.
So, and then that develops into a pattern, and that thought starts to prompt an emotion. Correct. Which prompts a certain action, right, which gives them a certain result.
And that's not Aileron only philosophy. That is how your brain works. That is how the human brain works, is how you see things. The filter you see things through creates the thought, creates the emotion, creates the action. I learned it: see, think, feel, act, but it's literally how you see things, your perception of the world, which is driven, by the way, we could get on a whole nother tangent, by the sources of information you're bringing in, which means if it's social media and TV and news, that is framing your thought process and how you see things, versus if you're exposing yourself to positive things, you see things differently. But this is how the human brain works, is filter it, because thought, emotion, action is how things work.
Yeah. So we tend to try to get back to and work with business owners around their thought, because what you typically see or feel is the action or the emotion, right? So you typically want to work there because that's what you see or feel, and you can create change, but it's not sustainable change. And the only way we can create change with business owners or with ourselves individually is create a new thought.
Yep.
Like, how will we approach this different, which gives you a different emotion, which gives you a different action, which you get a different result.
Yep. And the empowering part of that for a business owner, by the way, I have right over here, the book As a Man Thinketh, which was written 100 years ago, but is absolutely fantastic, and how your thoughts basically guide your whole life. Yeah. I mean, it's just, they completely guide your life. They do. But for the business owner, the empowering part of this is you can change your thoughts, you can change your inputs, your filter. You have control over how this ripples out into the rest of your life, right? But it has to start with you. So from a leadership perspective, if we're trying to change other people and how they think, we might need to change our own thinking, right?
Yeah, we talk about leadership as your ability to influence the people around you. So if you're showing up every day, so if you make a decision that should be somebody else's decision, and then tomorrow you make another decision that should be somebody else's decision, people are going to start seeing that behavior, and they're not going to, and therefore they're not going to make decisions because they know you will make it, right? So that's part of leadership, how it influences the people around you. If you start asking people to make decisions, being curious, suspending judgment, people around you are going to notice that, and you're going to start to see them start to flourish and bring ideas to the table that you never thought they had.
So leadership, that's like decision making, and how to model decision making, or how to model delegating decisions, I guess, is what you talked through. But that was just an example, right? That was just an example you were using to explain the point, is that they're modeling what you're doing. They're modeling your example. But if we talk about like leadership as a broad topic, and I guess maybe even if you look at businesses and step back beyond that and say, what differentiates the successful businesses and successful leaders that aren't feeling overwhelmed from those that maybe are or not successful and are probably feeling overwhelmed? Is it leadership? Is it strategy? Like at the highest level for businesses and people in leadership roles, where do you see the gaps?
Yeah, I think you have to have the fundamentals, right? You have to have the fundamentals of the business. So you have to have things, you have to be working on culture, you have to be working on strategy. Because as business owners, business owners like to say yes to everything. Oh yeah, we could do that. Oh yeah, we could make that, right? And sometimes it goes against the strategy, which will affect the culture. And we know culture eats strategy for lunch, right? But leadership, if you're working on the fundamentals, our belief is that leadership will accelerate, supercharge those fundamentals. And the better leader you are, how you're willing to delegate, empower individuals, build a competent leadership team, give them input into the strategy, all that is going to supercharge all the fundamentals of the business.
I love that. I love the word supercharged too. And it starts with leadership. Leadership eats strategy for lunch. Leaders create the culture that drive behavior. Like it has to be the number one thing. That doesn't mean it's the only thing. And Aileron helps with leadership development, strategy development, structure, organizational structure, things like that as well. Meeting structure, cadence, I would say strategy deployment. Like it's pretty broad what you all offer, right?
It is, and we talk about those as the fundamentals. So strategy, people development, business structure, organizational performance, culture, like all those. And our model is round. It's round for a reason. When you change anything in one of those disciplines, it's going to affect the other. And so this is a professional management. We like to talk about it as we're trying to create professionally managed organizations. And at the end of the day, we're trying to improve the quality of life in America through professionally managed organizations, right? And you have to be working in those disciplines to create a sustainable business. So a lot of times what we're seeing is a business owner coming in here, and if we were to pull them out of the business, there is no business, right?
Correct.
And
which means there's no business, which just means it's not a business.
That's right. So what we try to help them do is, if you really want to create a business, like this has to change, right? It can't be so dependent on you that if you get plucked out of the business that it's going to go under, right? And that's the most satisfying thing, when we can take somebody from there to they can take a month off and come back and the business is just humming along.
I have two questions. So first, because I love something you just said, and I want to come back to the quality of life discussion, but what, like, as a business owner or as a leader, if I'm delegating, I think there's a hesitancy to say, well, what am I doing? Like, like if I can leave for a month, isn't that a bad example to the organization that I'm setting? Like, what is the psychology of what business owners think and what business owners think their employees think?
Yeah, so you've done a lot of work on self-leadership, so you'll probably be familiar with this. We talk a lot about the difference between true and truth, right? So true is the stories that we tell ourselves, and the truth is actually what's going on. So a true for most business owners is that I have to be there. And if I'm not there, people are going to judge me that I'm taking more time off than them, blah, blah, blah. The story goes on and on, right? Generally not the truth. So the true, we will adapt our behavior based on the true, which is our story, but it's not the truth.
Okay, now I want to go to this profound statement you made about, to set this up, Aileron is an organization that supports businesses and business leaders and develops self-leadership. But the statement you made is that Aileron's goal ultimately, and I don't know if like this is to change the quality of life in America. Yep. And I think this is important to understand, because as business owners, the role, I mean, on one hand, I don't want to create overwhelm for you, business owner, but on the other hand, the responsibility is big, right? Because you are impacting a lot of other people. I think that's what you mean by that. But tell me about like the access that business owners have to the home.
Yeah, I mean, I'm working with a client right now that he has a $40 million business, and he has 50 people working for him. So he feels he's responsible for 50 families, right? And that extends just not to the person that's working there, but the whole family. And then what the family does in the school system, what they do in the community, right? They had events. Some of their employees were putting on events for some people that live in poverty, right? They couldn't do that if that business owner wasn't there, right? So like, he's not directly doing that, but he's creating an environment and jobs and benefits that allow these people to do that work.
And I think I love it because I think we can so easily overlook, the ripple effect of leading a team member, but that team member is leading a family at home, maybe a broader family, maybe siblings, like, something like that. But also it's not, when you first said responsible for 50 families, that's not just the paycheck of those 50 families. Yes, that's financial is part of it. But I think what leaders are doing is creating a culture in the workplace that parts of that culture, is rippling over to the family, right? Like if you just think about the filter and the thought, emotion, action, you're inspiring how your employees and team members think, and they're bringing that home, and they're inspiring how their spouse or children think, which changes their entire lives. There's such a big call. Again, don't get overwhelmed by this, but there's a big call to business ownership, leadership, entrepreneurship, I think. And I love the aspiration that Aileron goes beyond, like, it's not just the bottom line that we're trying to help.
Yeah, Phil, I love what you're saying, and it's what we get the privilege of doing every day, because our business owners, like, one question I'll ask a business owner when he comes in is, if we're sitting here a year from now and you call Phil and say, Phil, the best thing you ever said to me was go to Aileron, what would have to be different for you, right? And I don't think I've ever heard a business owner say, I want more money. It's always things like, I want to spend more time with my family. I want people in my organization to grow. I want them to have the opportunities to do more, to learn more, to develop, whether they stay here or not. Like, that's the type of stuff we hear from business owners. So I think a lot of times private business owners, people from the outside look and say, oh, they got all this money and they're buying all these boats and all that. And we're so lucky because we get to see what really goes on and the care that business owners have for, one, their own family, but their work family and the families associated with their work family.
Yeah, I think so Matthew Kelly is an author. He wrote The Dream Manager and a lot of other great books, but he talks a lot about becoming the best version of yourself. Well, I think the best opportunity we as business owners, business leaders have is to help our employees become the best version of themselves, the best that they can be. If we can do that through, professional support, professional development with Aileron, through book discussions that you have as a company about leadership and about growth, whatever it might be, if we can help them become the best version of themselves, there's such a ripple. I love that. I want to jump back 20 years, Chuck. You shifted from ownership to, leadership development, consulting, like supporting, coaching, facilitating. I mean, for you personally, like that shift, and I ask this because maybe there's some people that are in this, end of their career and they're thinking about, what am I going to do with the next phase? By the way, I jokingly, I have a group of guys, so if you're listening, I handed them a book called The Fourth Quarter of Your Life. And then I said, hey, I get the halftime book. But anyway, I digress. So a shout out to you guys. I love you guys. You'll know what I'm talking about. Anyway, for maybe those people that are approaching the fourth quarter or thinking about a shift like that, because maybe they've set up a business and it is running well and they just want to serve other people. How was that shift for you?
So if I'm being totally honest, it wasn't easy. Because as a business owner, you do a lot of telling, right? And shifting into a role of working with other people, you have to learn to do a lot of asking. So it's one of the reasons we talk about why we're not consultants. We have the skills to be consultants. We have the experience to be consultants, right? But we have the skills to ask really good questions. Mm-hmm. Yep. And be curious and suspend judgment. And I think that was the biggest thing, because we'll have people come to us sometimes, Phil, really experienced business owners, and they just want to tell other business owners what to do versus really understanding what the business owner wants and helping them understand how to get that, right?
But so now put yourself back in that entrepreneurship, leadership role and trying to get away from the telling, because I think the lesson from that would be, as the leader with people directly working for you, that you do have the, I'll say, organizational structure control to tell them what to do. Asking is way more influential than telling.
It is, and I wish I would have known that when I had my business. Because here's the funny thing, I did it with my clients, my customers, right? I was a really good salesperson. I always told people if I could get into somebody's house, most of the time they were going to buy from me.
Yeah.
Because I asked them what wasn't working, what would you want more of, less of, right? Asking questions, but I didn't do that on the business structure side of it. And I think that's one of the biggest things that I've learned here is that, and what we teach, if you can do that, that's true leadership, right?
Not easy, because it takes patience. It takes a lot of things that I'm working on, by the way. So I need to work on more asking, less telling, but I love that. What a great way to ask questions, to trigger thought and creativity in your employee base versus telling them. And I heard recently the 131, like, hey, if there's a problem, give me 3 potential solutions, but you tell me what you think you want to do. And eventually they're just not going to come to you anymore because they're going to know what to do, right? There's so many ways to develop this, but I think questions triggers so much thought, and I'll be working on that, Chuck. So thank you for that. Chuck, I want to talk about, so September 25th coming up here in the next month and a half or so, probably a couple weeks by the time this is released, but we're going to do an event. You might be coming up. Luke Sargent, one of the coaches, facilitators of Aileron, is coming up. Just tell us high level. Don't give it away, but what are we going to be talking about at that event?
Yeah, I think you're going to be talking about some of the things we touched on. The title of it is "Why Your Business Depends on You More Than It Should," right? And every business owner we talk to has some piece of that, right? Hey, I can't take a vacation, or I can't take that Friday off to go play golf because we have this big sales meeting, or whatever it may be. And so what we do is to try to introduce a few tools that will allow you to think about that differently, to be more curious with yourself, right? And understand what that behavior is actually doing inside your organization.
And so September 25th, breakfast. If you want to hear more information about this is going to be a phenomenal event. By the way, we sent this out and instantly got a lot of responses already. There's going to be a lot of local business owners, business leaders, like high level, executive level folks there. So, but also I want to say that I don't want you to have imposter syndrome, if you've heard of that before, where you actually need to get in rooms where you have imposter, where you don't know if you belong there, because that's where you're really going to grow. So just as a general rule of thumb for you, if you put yourself in uncomfortable situations, but if you're an executive, if you're a leader, no matter what size business that is, you can email info@moellerre.com to get more information about that. We'd love to have you. It's going to be a phenomenal event. I'm really excited because sometimes I'm facilitating these discussions. I'm going to be at a table with other business owners doing the exercises, trying to figure out why my business depends on me more than it should. And I think if you feel like you're in that spot with you and your team, your organization, you're definitely going to want to check it out. Chuck, I want to talk about, so 20 years has gone by. Aileron is unbelievable, having a great impact. I'm sure you hear stories from companies all over the place, business leaders, men and women all over the place, families all over the place. But what are you really excited about? You've been there for a long time, but moving forward, Aileron, like what excites you the most?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think we're finally, we have our systems in place, building a system, building with the right people to extend our mission, right? So we do have clients across the United States, but our vision is to improve the quality of life in America, and we're setting up the systems and people to allow us to do that. And one way we're doing that, Phil, kind of like what we're doing with you guys, is through partnerships. So what other organizations, we're trying to partner with like mission organizations so that people don't have to go to multiple places to get the information that they need. So it's one of our strategies. I'm leading that. It's why I moved from COO to lead that partner strategy. So that's really exciting for me. Not in the way that, hey, we're going to have more business, but we're going to change more lives.
Yeah. How much improve the quality of life of America? I'm stuck on that because I love it so much. But how much of that is you see it versus you trust it's happening?
So we see it, but we also hear it. So we'll hear people. We just had a group graduate last week from our Becoming a More Conscious Leader program, and we'll have them reflect, and we hear things like, I'm a better dad, I'm a better son, I'm a better coworker, right? And we hear the same thing, I'm a better wife, I'm a better mom. Like, that's the stuff we hear. And it was really interesting when, when we first started really working in the leadership realm, that we were like, are business owners going to be like, do they really care like if somebody improves at home? And sometimes it's almost just as like, sometimes it's more important for the business owner to hear that than what's going on at work. So it's just beautiful.
And I would just say that for our listeners, if you look at some of the guests maybe you've heard on here before, or local companies and what they're doing, Superior Aluminum, Doug Borchers is a big supporter of Aileron, Level MB Construction, Matt Gray and the Twisses, Garmin and Miller, Choice One. There's so many different companies that have worked with Aileron, and they just, they're clear on their core values, they're clear on who they are, they're clear on their vision statements, they're clear on how they're going to grow and what their strategy is. You look at organizations that have worked with Aileron and they are dialed in, and not just like the Garmin and Miller discussion just came out, but they're not just dialed in on their strategy, but they're building, like their comment, we're building communities, right? They're building lives, they're building communities, both through literally building structures, but more importantly, building up their people and having an impact. And I think Aileron's just a great organization. I want to ask, because you're a leadership guy, most influential leadership book that you've read yourself? I didn't even ask if you're a reader, I'm just assuming you are.
Yeah, I think for me, and this was life-changing for me, we talked before the show that, I did leadership coach training about 13 years ago, and I read the book Energy Leadership by Bruce Schneider, and the organization is called IPEC, Institute for Professional Excellence in Coaching.
Yep.
And I wanted to bring coaching skills into Aileron because we were doing a lot of telling and not a lot of asking, and we needed those coaching skills, and I wanted to find somewhere to get those. So I went through the coaching program at IPEC, which is about 340 hours, and it changed my life. You can ask people around me, it changed my life. And some of the organizations that you just mentioned have people in their organizations now that have been through that program as well, and believe in that content. So we get the pleasure of reading a lot of books and learning a lot about leadership, but I think that's what started my true leadership journey and my passion around it.
Yeah. I love it. And I think, IPEG is a great organization. Like, that is the organization on leadership development and teaching how to do leadership development. From my understanding, I've heard it before. I've heard it referenced from other leadership firms, but energy leadership too, just the title, like the energy you bring. One of our core values is positive attitude and energy. And it's, what energy are you bringing to are you bringing energy, or are you sucking energy out of the office, right? Are you asking it in questions, or are you telling people what they have to do and how you're saying it? Everything is how you do it as well. So I think just bringing energy is such a critical element of leadership that can be developed, like so many of these things can be, right? So I love that. Chuck, if you step back and reflect, you think about what you do, the impact you're having, you're hearing it from people, but you're also not even hearing a fraction of the impact you're really having, because you're not hearing it directly from the spouses and the kids don't even know where it's coming from, right? So the ripple effect of the impact you've had on Aileron and your team that you've been a part of has had on companies and families is profound, like hard to even wrap our minds around here. So if you step back and reflect, how does what you do, how does it make you feel?
It makes me feel lucky, right? Lucky that I get to do this every day. So one of the things we talk about is, if anybody's listening to this, think about how many times a day you say I have to, right? Versus I get to. And on Sunday, Phil, I say I get to go to work on Monday. I don't have to go to work. I get to go to work.
By the way, that right there, if you're thinking, I love that. And if you're thinking about your career, your leadership path, your business path, your entrepreneurship path, whatever it might be, I think that's a good lens, a good filter, as we talked about, to think through is, I get to go to work tomorrow, or I have to go to work tomorrow. And if you are in a position where you get to go to work, you know what this feels like. But if you're in the position where you have to, by the way, that doesn't mean you have to change, but something does. The leadership there, your leadership, your thought, your input, something has to change. So let's shift that I have to I get to. Chuck, that's a phenomenal answer. I love that so much. how can people find out more about Aileron? Where would you like to direct people and get to know you and Aileron more?
Well, we have a great website, aileron.org. They can go there and find out about anything they want. I love meeting people, so you can feel free to reach out to me through the website. Actually, you can get to my profile and connect with me as well. We have complimentary business coaching sessions, Phil. If people want to go on there and just say, hey, I just want to have a conversation. I don't want to commit to anything. I just want to have a free conversation. You can go to the website and sign up for one. It's really easy. We'll have a conversation with you, talk to you, and then you can decide, hey, is this right for me? Is this something I want to do or not? We only want to work with you if you're committed and want to do the work, and we're the right thing for you.
Man, first of all, that is a great offer, a business coaching session complimentary to get to know really who Aileron is if you don't know from this discussion. Chuck, I've enjoyed this so much. I also would say, get to that event in September, and I think you're going to get to see Luke and Chuck and learn more about Aileron and the impact that they're going to have an impact there in just a couple of hours, but you're also going to get some exposure to the impact this great organization can have. So definitely check that out. Email info@moellerre.com to get more information and just get signed up for it. It's the cost of coffee and breakfast, like $30, but Aileron's doing it complimentary. It's just to cover the venue and breakfast. But I mean, it's basically just 2 hours of your time for so much potential impact to not just your business, to your family, and the ripple effect, as you heard before. So Chuck, this has been so much fun. I really appreciate it. For the Purpose Matrix, signing off.
Thank you.